And it really goes to prove that if you don't measure something, nothing will be done about it.
And we have to make New Jersey's business climate more attractive for entrepreneurs.
We are Wonder Women. Like, look at all these women and what they've done and what they've tried. And even if they didn't succeed, they gave it a shot.
I don't think it's fair to put a $4 or $5 billion price tag on middle-class New Jerseyans.
We've got a great lifestyle here, and I don't want to see it ruined because politicians can't manage our finances properly.
Welcome, I'm Lisa Allen, and this is As a Matter of Fact. We are filming from Hometown TV Studios in Summit, New Jersey. On today's episode, we are talking women's leadership. I am joined by three incredible women who are here to tell their stories. If you're a working mom, a stay-at-home mom, a mom who left her big job to start your own business at home, whatever your situation is, today's show is for you. Tune in to hear how these women have earned their way to the top and listen to their life lessons that may inspire you. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
I am so excited to have you on today. So women's leadership is such a big topic. I mean, we're hearing about it in the news every day. I think it's even gained more steam. And work-life balance is sort of this anomaly. I don't know if it really exists, but what I do know is that when I met each of you, you all have a unique story. You all kind of started at the same place, but all three took a different path in life. And I just want the women out there to know your story so that if there's anyone struggling, anyone that needs inspiration, they can listen to you and one of your stories will resonate. So can we start there?
Sure.
Yeah, all right. So Melissa, I'm going to start with you. You are a single mom. You have a beautiful, active 11-year-old girl, and you work as the director of the Center of Career Services at Montclair State. You also practice career counseling on the side as a profession, and having faced many personal hardships throughout your adult life, you have channeled that energy into your passion of working with women in career transition.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your story.
Sure. So like everybody else, every other 20-something, I thought I had it all. I had the husband, I had the house, I had the baby, and I had a job that I really, really loved. But that all blew up in my face one day. And my husband left, and within days he was living with another woman. So I found myself living in Pennsylvania, and I'm from New Jersey, and I didn't have a support system. I didn't really know anybody out there, and I was doing everything for my daughter. So after a few months of continuing doing that, it got to be too much, and I made the decision to move back to New Jersey, where I had my friends and family. Put the house on the market, and the only way I could move back here was by taking a very low-paying job at a private university in career counseling, and also moving back in with my parents. And what 34-year-old woman wants to do that? I've always considered myself to be independent, and this was probably the unhappiest time of my life. And it lasted for 3 years. And then I finally found a position where my salary was almost doubled, and I was able to move out and, raise my daughter on my own. And my job there was to really rebuild a failing department. And once I felt that it was stable and it could hold its own, I decided to seek another opportunity, and that was at Montclair State. But it was in a very specific role within career services. So I couldn't help myself but to stick my nose where it didn't belong and, start to make suggestions and eventually some decisions, in different areas that didn't necessarily involve me. And one morning, it was a Saturday morning, I woke up and I said, why am I giving the milk away for free? And I fired off an email to my boss, and I just gave him a job description of exactly what I wanted to be doing at Montclair. And he was great, and I was lucky enough that he made that happen for me. So, about 2 years after I started there, I all of a sudden was running the Center for Career Services. And, every choice that I've made as far as my career goes, every decision since my divorce has been because I had this heavy obligation of being the sole provider for my daughter. So it's always been just trying to build the life that I felt that we deserved. And I think we're finally there. And I've always strived to be a role model for strong women for her. And, I think some of that's come back to bite me because she has a serious attitude. But I think that she does see me that way. And I don't think that she's held back by a lot of, what's going on in society right now. I mean, she really believes that women are strong and women can do everything.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. We're going to come back with some questions. But first, I'm going to introduce Maureen. You're a 3-time graduate from Seton Hall. You've completed your doctoral internship from Notre Dame from 2002 to 2003. You've held many positions within psychology, which also include being a psychologist for the NYPD Police Department. You've been a career counselor, an advisor, a professor. You're married. You have 2 wonderful daughters, but you left all of that to stay home for a period of time. Can you talk about your journey and your story about being a high-powered woman and having these degrees, but making the choice to stay home?
Absolutely. So the story actually began when I was very young, and a lot of the influences began from that very young stage. So I was born into a very large Irish Catholic middle-class family. So right there you have a ton of influences at your fingertips. And the joke was in the neighborhoods that you'd always have either a civil service worker or a religious worker. And my dream was to be a police officer. Not many women were in the profession at that respective time, but that didn't bother me. I wanted to be a police officer. I dressed up as a police officer for Halloween. It was really something. However, as I began to grow, my physical stature did not. So it wasn't primarily the best fit physically for me, but my love of structure and organization and discipline continued to follow me. As you stated, I went to Seton Hall 3 times over for the field of psychology, and I did complete my internship at Notre Dame. But I continuously had this love of structure, organization, and law enforcement. So I decided to pursue it with the NYPD. And I was a police psychologist, loved every minute of it. It was a job that really was very time-consuming, very detailed schedule, very long hours. So as my husband and I decided to move forward and have children, probably not going to be the best fit. So I decided to then channel my skills into the school system. So it's a little more amenable to having a family in terms of a commute and in terms of the schedule. And we had our daughter the following August, our first daughter. When in fact I went back to work after 12 weeks of maternity leave, I had this absolutely strange feeling inside that I had never had before. And that feeling was, I miss a child. I have a new role in my life that I didn't quite ever expect to have. How can I go to work? Where is this child going to go? So my husband was in charge of dropping her off at childcare. I was in charge of picking her up from childcare. Needless to say, I lasted 6 weeks. Wow. And not only did that surprise him, but it really surprised me because I had a new part of my world began, a new part of my vocational identity. And so I talk a lot about vocational identity being a figure 8. So at that respective time, when our first daughter was only 3 or 4 months old, that became my primary vocational identity. Because while at work, it was very hard for me to only be at work. I missed her so much. Times changed. Then I was home, absolutely loved being at home, but then that figure 8 began to move again, and I missed work. I was really fortunate to get a part-time position as a career counselor, and during that time I developed a class for Seton Hall, which I teach every semester, career decision-making and lifestyle planning. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect because then we had our second daughter right before the class was going to go forward, and the classes were in the evenings, so that became a tremendous fit for my husband and I. He worked during the day, he would come home, and I would teach my courses in the evening. So I teach in the undergraduate and the graduate department at Seton Hall. Time went on, I felt like, gosh, I want to do a little bit more. I was enjoying my time at home with the children, but I felt like, how can I get back in touch with my skills, who I am, what I wanted to do? So I opened a private practice in South Orange, mainly for adults with individual counseling. And in doing the teaching and the private practice, as well as being a psychological expert for the Archdiocese of Newark, I feel like I've been able to kind of marry both my profession as a mom, because I do call it a profession, and my profession as a psychologist. But interestingly enough, here we are again. Yeah. The 2 girls are in school full-time. My vocational identity is back on the table. And all of my spheres of influence are being called into play again. I'm married 15 years. The girls are now a little older. So what will I do? I'm kind of charged with the task and the challenge, which I'm excited about, to reconnect with my resources and my networks, and to increase my private practice, to increase perhaps teaching as an adjunct, to do more as a psychological expert in the Archdiocese of Newark. So But I think my message has been for me is how do I, at each respective stage I've been in, how do I own it and give myself permission to be okay with where I am?
Right.
Because some stages weren't enough.
I think that's a great point. I think that women all through their life, you know, you have the young professional, then you have kids, you also have aging parents, and we're going to go to you, Andrea, about that, because you have a profession where you go to work, but then you have a parallel profession. I love that. You do. Women have parallel professions going on all the time with raising children. And I never thought of it. We talk about it being a responsibility and a profession, but I've never thought of it as being parallel, you know. So, and I'm going to segue to Andrea because I really want to hear your story also, Andrea. You spent almost 10 years in corporate HR. You made a career change in 2002 into career counseling and higher education, working at Seton Hall also, their career center. And in 2010, in effort to balance your life and your demands of family, motherhood, aging parents, you decided to go and start your own business. You became an entrepreneur, and you opened up a consulting company with your partner Jen Rogers and called it Turning Leaf Career Consulting. Can you talk about that journey, your successes, your obstacles, and what it's like being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that was really one of the most challenging, actually, experiences of my life was this career change into career counseling. But it was necessary. So as you said, I worked in the corporate realm for 10 years, and all along I was in HR, staffing, recruiting. I felt like there was something missing for me. I couldn't pinpoint it. I loved working with people, helping people, but I needed more. And I was impacted on 9/11. I actually worked in the World Trade Center, and I wasn't there that day. But I was in a career that I was really not happy in, and that experience was my epiphany that it was time to make a change, and that life was too short to be continuing to do what I was doing. So my world really kind of fell apart at that time. Great things were happening. I had just gotten engaged. I was getting married, and you know, I was doing well in my career, but I was unhappy. And then the events of 9/11 really shook me to the core. And very serendipitously and luckily, I was relocated to another building in Midtown Manhattan, where I'm going in, and there was a sign for a career counselor. And that was really the beginning of my journey into career counseling. And I was introduced to the career itself. And so from there, I did a lot of self-assessment and really understanding what do I want to do. And that's when I went into higher education and started my journey into career counseling at that point. And I got my grad degree, and I loved what I was doing. But as you said, in 2010, more events happened in my life where, as an only child, I had two young children, a newborn and another daughter who was 3, 2 daughters, and elderly parents, a 92-year-old father and a 7-year-old mom at the time. And they were imploding. My father was, in hospice. My mother was on her way to assisted living, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't really balance all of it. And so I made the decision, although I loved my career so much, that it was time for me to go. I couldn't continue to work that full-time schedule. I needed flexibility in my life, and that really gave me the impetus to start my own firm, to really do things on my own terms, still continue the career that I loved, but do it in a flexible way.
Mm-hmm. Has it worked for you?
It has. It's, I just think that's one of the things I'm most thankful for in my life is this career. And it has given me the flexibility and just the continuation of experiencing a career that I love dearly, and I feel like it's really in alignment with who I am.
Right. And I love that when you were saying, Maureen, the figure 8. I always think of life as a zigzag, the ups, the downs.
Yes.
But I actually like that, the metaphor of the 8, because it's always connected. A zigzag is not, right? Do you feel like there's such thing as work-life balance?
I think you have to make it happen. It's not just going to let itself happen. I mean, there are plenty of weekends where I have my laptop open and, I'm doing work, but you know, that my daughter will want to do something, and she's my priority. She's the reason why I'm doing this. So I have to drop everything and go make her happy and go spend time with her. It's tough. I'm still a single mom. So it's from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed at night, it's all about her. So oftentimes I say when I'm leaving work, I'm going to my second job. Not that I view her as a job, but I know I'm not going to have
It's
my
the
feet
parallel
up.
profession.
Right,
exactly. I'm going to
profession.
use that
Yes.
from now on.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that you have to force it. I think it's important that we force it because we do need that balance in our lives.
Do you think there's work-life balance in your life in the sense that now you're going to be re-emerging, you want to do more? Let me ask you this. What are the concerns that you have moving into widening your net professionally now that your kids are older?
The concerns that I have would be taking care of myself amidst the process. So while scary, 100%. While challenging, 100%. I feel as if it's my calling and my responsibility to tend to the needs of my children and my husband. So I almost feel like that allows it to become an easier process. However, amidst these processes, sometimes you forget yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was quite the salient process just this morning. You know, coming here, preparing with the many emotions and getting ready to speak about my vocational identity. My husband was home from work today. He had the week off. But still, he was able to just do as he does each respective day to get out the door. And I continuously got the children ready and the whole entire day ready for them to get out the door. And so my process in getting ready today was pushed back an hour. And so that's extraordinarily parallel to answer your question of my concerns. I do feel strongly that I can tend to their needs, tend to the needs of the respective profession, but making sure I continuously keep myself in check and be okay and give in to myself. I think those might be the challenges at play.
Yeah. I think that there are days that we feel like we're lighting the world on fire.
Yep.
Right? And then there's days that we just feel like it's all falling apart and how is everybody else keeping it together and I can't do it.
Yes.
How do you, I'll say, go to you, Andrea. How do you, when you feel like the world is falling apart, how do you regroup, get yourself back together so that you feel like, you know what, tomorrow's a new day?
I think I've learned to sort of observe what's happening and kind of, recognize that, okay, I'm feeling a little bit chaos right now. And what's happening here, and sort of, maybe it's our counseling background that makes me, overanalyze things. But I do think about it, and I think, okay, what is this telling me? And I try to step back as best as I can. And I think you mentioned, Maureen, just surrender and sort of let go of what's happening and kind of just observe it, see it for what it is, and really tap into my intuition and my, what is my true self wanting to do now. Sometimes I'll, step back and maybe it is as simple as just regrouping, going outside, going into nature. I think I've lately, kids really, I think, bring us back into nature, and that's something that's been a big part of my life lately. But I think it's sort of observing it for what it is and then surrendering and not trying to control it.
I found that my mantra became progress, not perfection.
Yes.
Because every moment I was trying to be perfect, I was getting nothing done. And you counsel women in career transition, and I think there's lots of flavors to that.
Right.
But what are you finding with women? Are there similar themes that they're going through? Are there very different themes that happen in their life? What are you seeing with women in transition?
Well, I think even if it's a woman who is looking for an encore career, or she's been at home for years and she wants to get back into the workforce, the one theme that I see across the board is that women are afraid to talk about their accomplishments and how great they are. We've been taught since we were little girls that that's not okay, but you could have a man interviewing and they have no problem talking about all the great things that they've done. But for some reason, it's almost like we're ashamed or we don't want to brag about things. But I think that we have to get better with telling our full story, and we have to get better with talking about all the great things that we bring to the table. And sometimes women don't even realize what those things are. So I think it's a really important practice to sit down and start to think about, how much do you get accomplished before 7 o'clock in the morning? Where are some of the times you went above and beyond and you really made a difference? Because we have to get comfortable talking about this.
Right. I think the challenge too is I was a stay-at-home mom for a period of time. I left JP Morgan. I did have a photography business, but then I was home for 2 years. And I think what happened during those 2 years, and Andrea knows this, I felt a little lost, like where do I start? Where are my strengths? How, for the women out there, if they have been home for a period of time and they're like, my skills are not strong because I haven't been in the workforce, where do they start?
I would humbly recommend that they start with going for a walk. And it's a little bit of a piggyback to what Andrea was saying with regard to nature, because I think oftentimes what we're doing is our days are so full. Our days are so, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, and we're getting so much done. And even re-emerging into the workforce, hurry up, get this done, contact this person, contact that person, everything is so full that we're not really taking the time to say, gosh, who am I now? Right. And I think that that's an extraordinarily large dynamic that's missing. So who we are today has emerged simply by the sheer nature that now we have new people in our worlds that we are with every respective day. We have aged. By that comes wisdom, hopefully. But
some days.
Yeah, but we have getting in touch with who are we today? And I think that's what sometimes we want to continuously hold on to who we were. And while clearly we were awesome, we're a new awesome. And what is that today? What are our strengths today? What are our passions today? Who would we like to be if given the choice today? What expectations are we carrying? What past and new influences do we have?
Right.
And I think I would strongly encourage, don't let any of those variables pigeonhole you. Rather, put them all in an interconnected figure eight and let the cycle begin to get to know who you are today. And that would be my recommendation for re-emerging.
Well, Andrea was really pivotal for me. She helped me rewrite my resume. And really just that, really sent me home with assignments around what have I been doing in terms of volunteering, right? I mean, you can certainly tell this story. You've probably seen this a million times. But thinking about the strengths that I bring to the table as a volunteer or the work that I had done in the past. So how would you answer that for women that are either home and want to transition back in, or working and say, you know what, enough of this, I want to find what I really love to do?
I think it's twofold. I think that seeking support and help in this is really important, whether going to therapy, going to career counseling, or reading or doing things to sort of help you understand who you are and really get back and do the digging that it takes to understand. When you understand who you are and what you value and what your interests are and your personality and environments and skills that are innate, when you really understand that, it's then easier to understand, well, who needs that and where do I go? And I think you really have to take the time to do the inner work. I also think that on the other side, getting experiential education and learning is important as well, and that is through volunteer work, through doing things to sort of get your feet wet, get out there and start learning skills that you might be interested in. And I think that's the key. I think I see a lot of women that are stay at home, that do a lot of volunteering, which is fabulous, and they feel very burnt out by that volunteering. And so my advice is to volunteer, but do it strategically. Do it, so that you're doing something that is interesting and helpful, and that you're learning from it, and that it could be a segue into perhaps a career that makes sense. And that's where you find, I think, you might tap into something that you otherwise might not realize.
So our topic is women's leadership, and something you said really stuck with me, Melissa. And leadership, by definition for me, is that it's being actionable. You don't have to be necessarily in a high-level position to be a leader, even though you are, but leadership is really about getting out of bed every day and making a decision that's right for you, and at the time, right for your daughter. I just find it really powerful that you're like, for 3 years, you were humbled. You went through a really difficult time. You went home. It was your daughter that got you through, but was there something else? I mean, I just find not a lot of people would be willing to be humbled and go through what you went through and then get to be where you're at today.
Well, I think it's two things. Number one, I think I'm a fighter, you know, and I just don't take anything lying down. And I think also, I just inside of me just had this faith knowing everything was going to be okay someday. And when you don't have anything else to go on, you just go by that. You kind of go by this blind faith, and eventually things do work out. You just have to believe that they will.
Right. Do any of you have a mentor or a role model that you look up to that helps you get to where you're at today or have made decisions? I don't feel as though I had a role model per se. I think my friends became a support network for me. But did any of you have a role model?
Well, so my grandmother was my role model. Excuse me. She passed away in 1999, but she was essentially a single mom to 10 kids because her husband wasn't really in the picture. He was in the picture enough to, you know, make her keep having these kids. And then she adopted an 11th, and she raised 11 kids on her own. So when I think I'm having a bad day, you know, and she was a waitress, you know, I think back to what her life must have been like. So she's always been my role model.
I love that. How about you, Maureen?
Honestly, my role model won't be in the same dynamic. My role model came to be Mother Teresa. And I think for me, I was blessed to meet her in 1997. She came to the Missionaries of Charity in the Bronx. And I think she became my role model because she did stay true to her passions and her callings amidst hardship. It wasn't easy to be her. But before the big word of empowerment that we all use, and you know, we teach our youth and our young ladies and all of our, you know, folks of today, we speak of the word, she did. She empowered women to serve the poor, to feed the hungry. And she really stayed in touch with herself. And I think for me that's a big role model, because sometimes that is hard to stay in touch with the person you are today. You know, kind of going back to what I said, like, you know, it changes all the time. Yeah. So to get in touch with who you are today, where you are today. And I think that was a gift that she had.
How about you, Andrea?
You know, I don't have one particular person. I have, I think, multiple people who have supported me along the way, and I really believe that every part of your life there is someone that is there to sort of help you along. You know, whether it's a professor that was my mentor that got me on the track of human resources, that career, or whether it's a boss that gave me, you know, believed in me, or one that didn't. Even those that, you know, were difficult, I think are our greatest teachers. So, you know, I think that, you know, just, you know, my clients are often my role models. My, you know, my children in many ways, you know, just learning from them and kind of just observing, you know, I think I really can't say there's one. I think it's multiple.
And I love that answer. And we're going to close on that, because that is perfect. And I actually want to go back and think about who my role models are now that I said that. But I want to thank you so much for your time today. I think your stories are incredibly encouraging, inspiring, and if there's any women out there, maybe they can reach out to you on LinkedIn. We'll put your contact out there for them. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you so much, the viewers, for watching today. I really appreciate you tuning in. And a big thank you to my inspiring guests who shared their stories. I hope one of their stories resonated with you to give you the courage to step out, let go of fear, and remember, you're not alone. My mantra, progress, not perfection, is what creates success. When you feel stuck, you need some motivation, be sure to set your daily intention so you don't get derailed. More importantly, tapping into your network of women who can pull you up, pull you along, and just be there when your success happens is what life is all about. As for being a leader in your life, action, not position, in my opinion, defines leadership. When you hear the quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world," that's leadership. The question to ask yourself is, what kind of leader do you want to be? I leave you with this quote from John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. For more stories like these, visit our website at hometowntv.org or subscribe and like us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Hometown TV. See you next time on As a Matter of Fact.